Welcome, everyone, to the Museum of Forgotten Objects. Actually, you're not there yet, but you will be welcomed in future time. Yes, you read that correctly. I'm writing this letter to you from the future. From the future? I can hear people asking in astonishment. Let me explain before there's any more confusion. My name is Ella. I'm writing to you from the year 2083. At this time, we haven't yet discovered time travel, but we found a way to write letters to the past. That's how I'm able to send you a letter from the year 2083. So, why am I writing this letter to you? Because, of course, there's a reason. I work at the Museum of Forgotten Objects, which exhibits objects that people have stopped using over time. There is a special section at this museum, which is why I'm writing to you. This section specializes in something you used to call a plastic straw. Yes, you heard that correctly. The Museum of Forgotten Objects has a section designated to plastic straws, and it attracts the most interest. You might have some questions for me. Why is there a plastic straw section at the Museum of Forgotten Objects? What? Do you mean that people don't use straws in the future? Before answering your questions, I'd like to ask you one myself. It's a question I ask myself all the time. Please tell me, why are plastic straws used? Why would anyone prefer to drink with a straw rather than directly from a glass or a bottle? If you visit our museum when 2083 arrives, please look me up and we'll try to find the answers together. Going back to our topic, I want to tell you about the plastic straw section at our museum. But I should warn you that I'm not going to say things like, plastic straws take approximately 500 years to decompose and they seriously harm the environment. Because I know that you've regularly encountered such information during your time, and I'm not going to repeat what you already know. When preparing the plastic straw section at our museum, we drew inspiration from the butterfly effect philosophy, which means that a butterfly fluttering its wings at one point in the world can cause a storm somewhere else. This is the basis of the thinking behind the butterfly effect. The most insignificant incidents can have chain reactions that cause very different things to happen elsewhere. The plastic straw section at our museum provides a perfect example of the butterfly effect. Visitors to this section of our museum are suspended in air by a wind tunnel, so they seem to be flying around the room. The walls, the ceiling, and the floor are all screens that draw visitors into a virtual world. The wind tunnel blows them towards and away from the images so they feel as if they're in a dream. What do they see and hear? Well, that is exactly where my story begins. Welcome. Please relax and feel the air in the room. You will be aware that your feet gradually leave the ground. Don't let being suspended in the air scare you. The wind tunnel in our room will ensure you have a safe flight. I'm going to tell you a story that happened not so long ago. This story began with a simple no that went on to influence the entire world. The reason we have plastic straws in this museum today is that two-letter word, no. 50 or 60 years ago, there would always be plastic straws at mealtimes, particularly in restaurants. Waiters always put straws on the tables, and people drank through them without a thought. One day, something interesting happened that was totally unexpected and that had an impact on the whole world no one could have anticipated. A waitress realized that she had forgotten to provide a plastic straw with the drink she was serving to a customer at a restaurant. "I'm so sorry, I forgot to bring you a straw. I'll get one right away," she said. The customer merely replied, "No." A simple two-letter word, no. The waitress was taken aback. She wondered how the customer would be able to drink without a straw. Then a second question entered her mind. Do we really need plastic straws? The waitress decided to do a little experiment to find an answer to this question. Whenever customers ordered their drinks, she began to serve them without plastic straws. Not a single customer asked the waitress for a straw, and so the waitress continued to serve drinks without plastic straws. Now let's continue our story from the perspective of the restaurant owner or patron who regularly bought supplies for his business. When checking his accounts, he noticed that it had been a while since he bought any plastic straws. He asked his employees, who had told him that customers didn't feel the need to use straws. The patron was very happy to be saved from the expense of buying plastic straws. The patron was smart and decided to use this situation for publicity. He announced that they no longer used straws out of respect for the environment. Although the patron's cunning move has little significance in our story, we felt the need to tell it because of the impact that it made. Now let's continue our story from the perspective of yet another person. Actually, not one person, but many. Influenced by the patron's publicity drive, rival cafes and restaurants told their customers, "We too no longer provide plastic straws out of respect for the environment." As a result, lots of cafes and restaurants throughout the country stopped using plastic straws. The company that produced the straws noticed that they weren't selling, so they stopped producing them and went into a different line of business. But what's the point if just one country in the world stops using plastic straws? You might be asking. What's the use of one country ending the use of plastic straws on its own? Don't be impatient. It so happened that the 4 yearly Olympic Games were held in the country where this story is set. Competing athletes and others came from all over the world to this country where plastic straws were no longer used in bars and restaurants. Noticing this, they returned home and began campaigns for the same to happen in their own countries. The result has been that straws have stopped being used all over the world. We are the last remaining straws. In this museum, we promote our cause. We state quite simply, without a fuss, that you have never needed us. If you want to find out why, here are facts you can't deny.